Doing.
Well, I'm doing great. Susan's doing great. We were so honored that she was with us last week. Alec actually had a collared shirt on in her honor, right, Alec?
I did, but I put those away. They're not coming back for a while. It's hot.
Yeah. Oh gosh, it's so hot here in New York. But anyway, for the new people, we have one of our good friends, Eddie Fleming, is joining us today. And Alec, you said we had was like a gold rush as far as the members go this week.
We did. We had quite a run on the bank. I'm going to check the numbers as you welcome everybody, and I'll give you an update.
Yeah, we're getting close to 2,000 people. So anyway, what we do here is this is like our escape, our phototherapy. And, a lot of crazy things are going on in the world, in our country, just everywhere. So this is our escape. And it's great phototherapy. So what we do is we review members' photographs by topic. And Alec is our topic master. And he reminds people, he is, right, Juan?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So this week it's sunrises and sunsets. So we selected pictures from the sunrise and sunset category, and we selected pictures. We had so many. We had hundreds and hundreds of pictures, but we selected pictures that we thought that the members could learn something from. So they're just not pretty pictures. So we're going to analyze. We're going to look into the pictures. Ansel Adams said there's a big difference between looking at a picture and looking into a picture. So we're going to be looking into some of the pictures that the members posted, and offer some suggestions.
Very cool. I can't wait for it.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. But as usual, Juan, what's your question you always ask first?
So what are you drinking, Rick?
Yeah, I'm drinking something out of a Route 66 koozie.
We can't see it. You got to put it kind of in front of you.
It's an IPA. It's an IPA.
IPA.
And you're drinking your favorite?
No, not my favorite. I'm drinking Fat Tire, which I like. I just haven't been able to go out to do a packy run, so I'm running low. This is like my second to last beer. So we'll need to go out. But you know what? I've been making, cocktails more often lately. So So how about you, Alec? Are you drinking the same, or have you deviated a little bit?
I have coffee. I didn't.
Oh, yeah, there we go.
On my way in here, so I might have to run out real quick before we dive too deep into it. But we are at 1,826 members, so we are rapidly approaching 2,000.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Hey, Juan, getting back to your beer and going off tangent as I always do, what goes with beer? What kind of food?
Well, all sorts of nachos are great with beer. Pretzels are great with beer. Anything, really.
A hot dog?
Yeah, I'm not too big a fan of hot dogs, but yeah, hot dogs, yeah.
Well, we don't eat too many hot dogs either. However, getting back to Fat Tire, they came out with Fat Tire hot dogs.
What?
I saw them I saw them in the store the other day. It's brilliant marketing.
I heard that.
I gotta try that. Would that like infused with Fat Tire or what?
That I don't know. But I thought that was interesting. So they have definitely good marketers there. So again, let's take a look at some of the photos here, starting with our good friend Alex Morley's wonderful picture, the best picture I've ever seen of Seal Rock. You've been there, right, Juan?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Beautiful place. I mean, and I love the fact that he had these swirls in front. I'm a sucker for swirls in water. I know. One of the things I look for a lot when I'm shooting waterfall, I don't do as much as seascape photography, but when I'm shooting water around waterfalls, around the mountains, I'm always looking for those swirls, especially in the fall. So I absolutely love this. I love the fact that it's got these multiple swirls going in, and the way the water is flowing is just mesmerizing. It keeps my eye moving around the image, looking at all the different aspects, different features in the image itself.
Yes. Oh, and we forgot to say that we would love feedback from our members. So, Alec, you're going to be checking the YouTube page and the Facebook page and reading some of the questions because I can't see them while I'm going through the show here.
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, I thank you. I love this picture. I love the color. We always say the most important thing in a picture is the mood and the feeling. And the mood and the feeling that Alex captured here is just amazing. Everything in the scene is in focus, a great exposure. It's just so beautiful. It's one of those pictures that, and I think it got down a little low. It's one of those pictures that makes you say, I really wish I were there. And Alec, is Alec here? I think he is. I really wish I was there right now shooting with our good friend Alec Morley. I've been there. Susan and I have been there 3 or 4 times, and he just has a knack for capturing it. Okay, next up, Joe. I call this one "Duck in the Fire Mist" because Juan, you have a beautiful picture of the sandhill cranes and from Bosque del Apache and the snow geese.
That's right. And actually, you were with me there, too. So you have a similar image, right?
Not as good as yours. And I just love the shaft of light here. And you know what? One of my tips, one of my Sammonisms is, the name of the game is to fill the frame. And I might have shot tighter. Susan always says, shoot a little looser, which is good advice. I love the way that if you imagine the tic-tac-toe grid over this, like, the rule of thirds, I think that duck would be about where the lines intersect. So I like that, but some people might, crop a little tighter.
I agree with you. I would think I would crop a little tighter because that water in the bottom and on the right, it's beautiful, but there's a lot of it. And the thing that really draws our eye in and what we really want to be looking at is that shaft of light with a duck. So I would crop in at the bottom and on the right a little bit, tighten it up just a bit to remove some of that light, especially on the right hand side. That's a little bit distracting from our main subject, which is that duck and the shaft of light.
Yeah. Joe says he goes back to a familiar place, and Alec goes back to, the same spot over and over again. And I think this is really a good way to get good at composition and good at getting a good exposure. Go back to the same place over and over and say to yourself, I'm not going to come back. I'm not going to come back until I have like a totally different image, right? Like you go to that lighthouse in Arcadia all the time.
Yeah.
And this is really, really a good challenge. So for our listeners who can't go to like Antarctica or Bosque or, Alaska, wherever, go back to the same place and say, I'm not going to come back until I have, a different type of picture.
Well, I mean, that's the thing, Rod, right? You got to go out and photograph the same place over and over again because the light is going to be different. The subject's going to look different. The atmosphere is going to be different. So, in order to get those great images, you have to shoot the same location over and over again. You never know what you're going to get. Yes. Like a box of chocolates, right?
Right. Hey, Alec, any questions, comments?
We have a strong contingent here from Texas. They really like Alex's image. And as Alec, I have to correct you, Rick, that it is Alex Morley. So we want to give Alex the appropriate credit now that between he and I, we have you totally confused.
Oh, totally. Okay, next up, I love the story here that Janice says. She said, actually, she said to her husband, okay, I have enough shots. I'm out of here. And I've done this. I did this in Cuba. Susan and I were in Cuba. And we photographed so many blue cars. One, there's so many blue cars in Cuba. And we're at the beach and another blue car is under this palm tree and the blue water's behind. And I said to Susan, she'll remember it because she's over in the house listening. I said, I have enough pictures. And I didn't take it. And to this day, I'm really unhappy I didn't take this picture. So Janice said, okay, I've got what I need in camera and I'm done. Then the hubby was like, are you sure you don't want to stop? And she said, we did. And she said she's never going to do that again. Ha, ha, ha. So I agree with Janice. Don't do that. Look at this beautiful picture. I love the crop.
Yeah, I love the crop too. And I love these panoramic shots. And I love the fact that you have this nice big, is this a saguaro or some Joshua tree maybe on the left-hand side that really balances the image out. But you know what? I think what's really cool is that perspective that we have almost gives you these rays at the bottom of the frame. I don't know if it's fog that's kind of low laying on the vegetation there, but you got these lines that are coming in at you or going towards what is our subject, which is that beautiful sunset or sunrise or sunset and the mountains. A beautiful shot, really nicely composed.
Yeah, I like the way the trees are not cropped off at the right, and those rays. It almost looks like the radial blur filter, the motion blur filter. I really like this shot, and this is a good lesson. So thank you, Janice,
Janice does confirm it is Joshua Tree.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Really,
yeah.
Really beautiful, a great exposure. Maybe she could share her processing with us on the Facebook page, because I'm sure some processing went into this. It's really beautiful, in addition to the crop. I love it. Okay, the next shot that we picked, I thought David here captured the only picture I've ever seen of the green flash. I'm sure a lot of our members have heard of the green flash, but this looks
Is that a
like
DC comic hero or something?
Oh, the DC. What? The green, well, it is. It is. But,
It's a Green Lantern and then the Flash, but this is a new superhero.
It's a new superhero. But Susan and I, we've been to the Caribbean, and at happy hour in the Caribbean, everyone lines up and they look for the green flash. We've never seen it in 45 years of traveling around the planet together. So I don't know if that green around there is some kind of
it must be a post-processing thing. Maybe a little bit too much saturation on that sun that brought out those colors in there. So you got to be careful about that. Oftentimes, we can when we're adjusting images, we may lose sight of what we are trying to adjust, right? And we may go a little too far. So typically, when I'm working on an image, what I end up doing is after I make my edits and I think I'm there, I will go in and step away from the image, look away from the image, look out the window, or get a little distracted, read something else on my desk, and then come back and look at the image. Because what happens is our eyes get kind of used to what we're seeing, and we don't see maybe any artifacts we may have introduced or any color cast that we may have. So moving your eyes away and going back helps a lot in picking those things out really quickly.
Yeah, I think this happened in processing. What I do is when I'm photographing into the sun, I'm always exposing for the highlights. So I want, if there's a ball of light like that, I'll underexpose until I don't have, like a little blur around the edges. So we have a little blur around. In other words, so I want a really crisp ball. So I would have underexposed.
I'm sorry, Rick, finish your thought.
No, I was just going to say, we said the green flash, the process, and all that other stuff. The reason we picked it is because it's still an awesomely beautiful image.
Yes.
I love the way all the trees are separated. I love the cropping. I love the color. It's another one that I wish Susan and I were there with you guys and our members having happy hours. So maybe someday on our workshops we could all maybe in Cuba. Right?
Yeah, that's right.
Cuba,
we can have things just like this in Cuba. So yeah, folks. I mean,
so
not to plug
we have
it.
Explanations on the green flash. That's what I was going to say.
Go ahead.
Our friend Stephen Gotts writes, the green flash is an optical issue. Your eyes may not see it. It is not seen in the camera. It is your eyes playing a trick on your brain. Then Sissy Fry Wilson comments, the green flash happens actually the moment the sun disappears on the horizon.
Right.
Yeah. But Rick, what I was going to say, I wanted to remind people, and I don't mean to sound like a commercial, but you and I are running a workshop in Cuba next March, right? So, or is it April? Is it April or March? I think it's beginning of April, maybe late March, somewhere around there. Go to my website and check it out if you want to go to Cuba. This is the time to go, folks, because right now, the tourism to Cuba, not because of COVID, but because of political issues, is actually down a lot. So you're not seeing as many tourists in Cuba as we were seeing about 2 or 3 years ago, where we had Americans all over the place. So it is a much better time to go now than it was even like 3 years ago. But anyways, enough of that.
Well, you know what you said, Juan, you gave a good tip, like step away from an image. Here's something else that some of our members may not know, that alcohol and caffeine affect the way we see colors. I know.
Yeah.
So, and if you're printing your pictures, my advice is don't drink and print.
Don't drink.
But this is true. Alcohol, caffeine, stress, anxiety, and age. Seriously, all these things affect color. So if you wake up in the morning, and have coffee and you start processing, then you come back to your images and say, oh, the color, didn't look like that if you're having happy hour. And then you look at your pictures later on. So this is just something to keep in mind.
Hey, Rick, go back to that image again. I don't know about you, but this past week I have felt like I was there, because over here in Maine, it's been like 90 degrees.
Yeah.
So
It's
Anyways,
been
go ahead.
really, it's been really hot. But
Is that all 90 degrees down where we are?
Well,
It's been closer to 100.
but see,
Wow.
in Maine, it hardly ever gets like this. So this is why people
Yeah.
come to Maine in the summer, right?
Leaving this image with one more serious tip, cropping. Cropping gives us a second chance at composition. So I'm really big on cropping. And, there are photographers, Juan, I'm sure you know some of them. And actually the guy who gave our friend, that advice to sell his cameras, remember we were talking about this last week? This pro, he says he never crops. He never crops. He has to get it right in camera. But I say, like in
Wow.
the next image, look at this picture. Unless this was taken with like a Hasselblad or Mamiya, right? It's cropped. I love Heidi's picture. Heidi is very active. So is Sissy, and a couple of the other people that we're going to be showing their pictures today. They're very active. So we love the active members, and we love all the members. We're learning a lot, and as we always say, this is a very humbling experience for two pros like Juan and myself, right? The pictures that we're seeing are just like amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I look at these images and I think I go back to some of my images similar to that. I'm like, oh my God, what was I thinking when I took my image?
Yeah, I know. This looks like the tree in Bosque, right? You know that tree by the...
Yeah, except the water's not that big. But yeah.
No, it's not that big. But I love this picture. And again, I think, we picked it so we could learn something from these. So again, cropping is very important here. Also, the sun in a lot of these pictures is not in dead center in the frame. And sometimes It's not even in the frame. So I think having the sun, not in the dead center of the frame, although it does work in some cases, is important. But I love the exposure here. I might have underexposed just a little bit to get a crisper ball of light. So Juan, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I like the composition. I like the quality of light, both in the sky and on the water. And I think that's what really makes the image. The only thing that's a little bit troublesome for me is the way that branch kind of merges into that background and then reemerges on the other side of that rock. But other than that, I mean, I like the image. I think I may have tried to go maybe even a little bit lower in the frame to make the trees even a little bit more impressive, while still trying to keep them from colliding with that with those rocks in the background.
Awesome. I'm looking around the edge of the frame. We say use Border Patrol. So good job, Heidi. Please keep posting. Okay, Glenn Taylor. You know Glenn, right?
Of course, yes.
Glenn is he's an artist. He's a graphic designer. He says, another sunset on Cannon Beach. Well, I don't think it's just another sunset. What I like about this picture so much is like this looks like mountains. These clouds look like mountains, don't they?
Yeah.
In his composition, the rule of thirds, and he used a long exposure to blur the water, unless it wasn't moving too fast. He has negative space here, a little bit of highlights on the rocks here. Love it.
Yeah, and he kept, like you're saying, with a Border Patrol, he kept that rock on the right-hand side. He left room on top, right? Because the inclination for a lot of folks would be to crop in nice and tight to get it at those clouds, but then you lose perspective on what this rock on the right is and how big it is. So by giving a little bit of room on that, it does place the rock and the setting a lot better than if you had cropped in tighter. So I mean, I love the crop, and I cannot imagine. You were mentioning earlier, Rick. I cannot imagine not cropping my pictures, right? I mean, I do. Yeah. I mean, it's the very first thing I do when I'm editing a picture.
Right. Yeah, I definitely do that. And he says, Glenn goes on to say, it's hard not to get a good frame. Well, there's a difference between a snapshot and a great shot. And you know what? I just want to share another tip here. I was just doing this on a picture, and I learned this from Scott Kelby. Alec, you may remember he was teaching us this in China. What he does in a scene like this, he'll take his dodge tool, right? And he'll just maybe dodge a little here, dodge a little here, dodge a little here. Remember, Alec?
Yeah.
And he would just dodge, and it's just random, but it looks like little shafts or of light are on the spot. So I would recommend for our members, try this. and I have a before and after example of this that I'll post on the page. But it's amazing how just doing a little bit of dodging helps. But and again, the mood here is just so beautiful. Juan, go ahead.
Yeah, I love this too. I love the hint of that pier on the left-hand side. The colors and the textures of the sky. Maybe it's a little bit, for my eyes, a little bit saturated, more saturated than I would like it to be. The colors are just a little too vibrant, but it's still a great. Lots of texture, lots of backlit on those grasses. I would try to leave a little bit more room at the top. You see how that tall grass at the very top is kind of really close to that edge of that frame. So I'm not sure, Nitin, if you have a little bit more space there, I would add that in and maybe, back down a little bit on the saturation. Other than that, I think it's a winner. I really like the shot. I like the mood and the texture and the light and the colors.
Same thing. I might take out this rock down here.
Yeah, it's a little bit distracting, or darken it at least, right?
Yeah. Take it out or darken it. So you know what, Alec? How do you pronounce this person's name? Nitin and Nitin?
I said Nitin, but I don't know. I'm probably butchering it.
I wonder if there's a way that we can, where people could, add their location, because we have people from around the world, right? From India, from I think Nigeria. We have people from all around the world. So let's look into that. That would be cool.
I will add it to my to-do list.
Alec, you are so dedicated. Alec has a lot of things going on. You're doing personal training growth. You host the Monday meditation with Linda Marshall. For people who need a little, even a more serious break from reality. It's want to talk about that for just a bit, because it really is a good thing that you and Linda Marshall are doing, Alec.
Oh, the Monday meditations are just fantastic. If you haven't joined us, I know Linda's listening in on YouTube, watching on YouTube today, but we're getting a very engaged crowd, and we're getting into mindfulness, and Linda is really linking photography to the whole idea of meditation, mindfulness, oneness with the location and what you're doing, and just eliminating distraction so that you can be the best that you can be. And actually, Linda has done a very nice job. She and I just got done taking Don's course on macro photography. And if you don't leave Don's course realizing there's a lot you don't know about macro photography and the art of focus stacking and all of those good things. And Linda just went through that whole experience, and when it was all over, took a nice deep breath, said, I am where I am. I know what I have to learn, and now I will carefully go out and learn it. So she's actually been sharing her dual path of meditation and working through Don's programs on recent episodes. So hopefully you'll join us next week.
Cool. Very cool. But anyway, you're doing a lot, and I know you get up the topics and you add, and we joke about all this stuff, but thank you so much for all your hard work. And Juan puts all this stuff together with Facebook Live and YouTube Live, and he has he has like 37 monitors around him. He's going to take a behind the scenes shot. No, he makes a hard job look easy, and that's one of my favorite expressions. A sign of a true professional is making a hard job look easy. But so thank you guys. Anyway, back to the pictures. Sean Boyle, look at this, Jamestown, Rhode Island.
Beautiful.
One of the things I love. Beautiful. We are learning. Not only are we humbled by the pictures that we're seeing, we're learning so much. I love quotes. I love this quote. He who kisses joy as it flies by will live in eternity's sunrise. William Blake. I love this quote. And I think that really fits this beautiful picture, the mood, the feeling, the subtle colors. Juan, you looked at, you mentioned this was a little oversaturated for some. This is nice and soft. I just love this. And look at the likes here. 205 likes, 15 comments.
Very nice. Yeah, I mean, and one of the nice things I like about this, just like the workshops, is you learn, right? You learn from people, and gives me ideas for we're planning a trip out to the coast next week. Julie's taking the week off, and we're going to be going out and traveling a little bit around the state, and that's one of the things we're going to do. So this gives me ideas of things to look for to photograph when I'm out there.
The only thing I might have done is moved a little to the right to have the sun not here, but that's a subjective thing. Everything we say actually is subjective, right?
Right. I mean, one of the things I love to say when we are doing critiques, right, is that, anything that I say is my opinion, and I'm not always right. You can ask everybody around me at my house. I'm not always right. Yeah. So just take that as constructive criticism. Is not that we're absolutely right, and we don't have all the answers. So all we can do is give you our personal opinions.
Okay, speaking of that, ask people around your house. Let's get Julie on the show.
Yeah, right.
I wanted to confirm that.
Yeah. She'll tell you how often I'm wrong.
Actually, I had Susan will tell you the same thing. I had a VW van, and my bumper sticker on the VW van in the 60s was, "I could be wrong."
Yes.
So, look at these comments. Love the mood. I love the capture. Great mood. So a lot of people love the mood.
Yeah, and the live comments as well. People are really captivated by this one.
Well, I mean, I think, again, just like the other ones that we've seen, that the texture on the water being so nice and soft with that low light just gives you that sense of peace, right, when you're looking at this image.
Well, you know what? I just noticed this. You commented, Juan, on how these – you could see my cursor, right?
Yeah.
How these lines – these rays draw us right to the sunrise. In this picture, look how we have this like V drawing us right to the sunrise. So I don't know if this was by accident or whatever, but it's really a great shot.
I have to tell you this, Rick. So Sissy writes, so is it all right to put the sun in the middle? And Phyllis Webster immediately responds back, "It depends."
Yeah, that's funny. That's funny. One thing I might do is take out this buoy, because everything is like the same tone except this.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what that would look like with or without the buoy. The buoy, to me, adds a little bit of interest to the scene. It makes some, adds some incongruity to everything else that looks the same. So I would be curious to see what it would look like with and without the buoy and see which one I would like better.
So, Sean, you could try that. Okay, Ted Johnson. We picked this. He lives in Florida, and I like the sky here. I love the separation of the trees. Susan and I have been to this fort in St. Augustine.
Oh yeah.
I think it's an HDR shot, because we could see detail here. Like here's the sun, and we could see into here. So what do you think, Juan?
Well, I mean, I love all the silhouettes that we have here of all the different trees. I've been to this location many, many times in the past. And, first when I saw it, it looked similar to the forts in Puerto Rico, where I'm from as well. But then I recognized right away that it's the one in St. Augustine, because their settings are a little bit different. And the colors are nice. I think, again, that, the colors are a little bit too strong for my taste. I would like colors are a little bit more subtle than this, especially on the green at the bottom, because of that HDR that you brought out a lot of that detail. When you're, obviously this is a backlit shot. You expect that foreground to be darker than the background. And the fact that, for example, the palm tree, the trees, especially the palm tree, is dark. We have almost no texture there, but we have texture on the fort itself. There's kind of a little bit of conflict there. So I would tone down the exposure on that foreground, on the green as well as the fort a little bit, and leave it. You do want a little bit of texture there, but leave it a little bit more silhouetted. Don't try to bring so much texture in, because it just doesn't look as natural as it would look when you were standing there.
Yeah, I think just because you can do something doesn't mean that you should do it, right?
Right. I mean, but then again, we said this is subjective. This is our opinion, right?
If the painter Kincaid was watching, he would say it's probably not saturated enough.
Right.
He died a gazillionaire with his oversaturated paintings. But I forget who it was. They said that there's 5 pictures within every picture. And that's what I tried to, whoops, what did I do? Oh, I see what I did. So anyway, this could be one picture here, right? This looks like that little part of the fort in Puerto Rico. This could be one picture. Now, when I'm saying a picture, you're not going to be able to make a big print, but this could make a nice like panorama cropped like this. So I think this is a good exercise for us to do, to look at a picture and try to see pictures within a picture, in addition to when we're at a scene, shooting it vertically and horizontally. So Juan, Linda was on your workshop, right?
Yeah, this is a workshop, I think in 2014 or 2016, somewhere around there. And had a couple of people that attend these phototherapy sessions here. Linda took this image. It's kind of funny on the comments here. One of the other participants commented and showed a link to a video that I shot a time lapse of all of us on that rock shooting these images. And we got lucky that day with this incredible sky and a beautiful sunset. Yeah. And this is one of my favorite places in Acadia National Park here in Maine. But unfortunately, it's gotten so popular that it's really, really hard to get. Even back then, we had to get there like 2 hours before sunset to get the spot. Now it's like you got to be there 3 or 4 hours before, or otherwise you won't get the shot. Well, maybe in the COVID times, maybe a little bit different. But yeah, I like them both. The image that I made this particular day, I shot vertical like that, and I kind of like that a little better, except that the lighthouse seems a little bit more distant compared to the horizontal. But it's always good to shoot in both perspectives to get a different look and see what you like better. Or maybe because you want to make a print, and the place where you're thinking the print's going to go, maybe a vertical will work better than the horizontal. So if you can, and you have the time and the light is cooperating, definitely try doing both. Really good job, Linda. Beautiful shot.
Yeah, really beautiful. And here, again, if you don't shoot it both ways, if you shoot it, I always say shoot at the lowest possible ISO to get the cleanest possible shot. Meaning, you can make a larger print because you're not going to have as much noise.
And if you notice, Rick, one of the things, again, the details, right? Details is the devil's in the details. Linda did the right thing here and timed her shot to get the light blinking. So you see that red light inside the lighthouse. If you didn't time it right, your light could be dim and you wouldn't get that extra interest in the shot. Well done.
I like the way everything in the scene is in focus. We talk about that all the time, that in my landscape pictures, that's how I want them to look. I want it to look like it looks to my eyes. So I'm using the wide angle lens, small aperture, and focusing 1/3 into the scene. Or Alec, we could do what Don says, use a focus stacking, right?
Right.
Yeah, in this situation,
57 images of it.
In this situation, you're usually shooting at wide angle, so you can have really deep depth of field. Then you won't have to shoot the 57 images that Alec just mentioned.
Yeah. Okay, Sissy Fry, who's with us all the time. And we're glad. A lot of people would see the bird here nice and silhouetted, shooting like really tight. But I really like all this. This is what we call an environmental portrait. It shows the subject in the environment. I might have underexposed a little, so this wasn't as white. If you make a print, this would be like you put a white mat around it. This would be as white as the white mat. So I might have underexposed even a little more. But I love that Sissy thought of not shooting really tight. Maybe she couldn't. I don't know. Maybe she didn't have a long enough lens. But I really like the feeling of this and the color and the mood.
I love the fact that she saw this and photographed it. Even if she couldn't get closer, she still photographed it. My inclination, if I were in that same situation, if I was standing next to Sissy, I'm not sure that I would have seen the shot and made it. And it would have been, a fault of mine that I didn't see it. But I love the fact that she did see it and she made it, because it just adds so much to that scene. I love the fact that the bird is looking out to the right, so you can get a nice profile shot on it, and you know what we're looking at, right? And you still have separation in there. I may crop in a tiny bit on the left and on the right, because you have a lot of darkness there that I would try to remove a little bit of that. Not a lot of it, but just a little bit, so that you do get in a little tighter in. You don't have as much of that darkness on the lower left-hand side that, in my opinion, is not adding a lot to the image.
Mm. And Linda Cullivan, our friend, loves this. Alec, any comments?
On the last two, first going back to Linda's shot before this, just people were in awe of the clouds, very impressed with the two perspectives, and then also the clouds. And on this one, people like the framing of the image, the way that it's set up, and all that it captures. Yeah, on Sissy's. Yeah.
Well, speaking of the clouds, it reminds me of two landscape tips. One, the key to a good landscape is a good sky, right?
Right.
And the other one is never underestimate the importance of a good subject. And I'm serious about both of them, right? I mean, the sky really is very important. So anyway, getting back to this, we see the separation here. And Harada, was he here, Alec? Usually
I
he's
have not seen him, but he's usually here.
He missed it again. Okay. Yeah. Anyway, if I was shooting this, whenever I'm shooting birds, I'm always shooting at the highest frame rate if they're moving around. Maybe here I'm not going to be shooting at the highest frame rate, but here I think this could have been a cooler shot if we had a little separation, like Sissy has here, right? You see, Juan pointed out the beak and the nice silhouette and the profile, but I think this could have been better. It's a nice shot, which is why we picked it. And it has a nice mood, nice feel, and the subject's off-center, nice color, and all this other stuff. But I think if you're shooting on the highest frame rate, you might get a little separation. It might be a little better.
Yeah, no, I agree. Just having a little bit of that separation so you can see the entire silhouette of the bird will give you a better sense of what we're looking at. Obviously we can tell this is a pelican, right, because of the silhouette, but just having that separation between the beak and the wings would add that little bit extra. Having said that, I love, again, that texture on the sky, the color on the sky, and the fact that you had this bird up there and you were able to see it, and you had the patience to wait to get the right shot, says a lot. So, muy bien, Gerardo.
Hey, Alec, look at this. Alec says you could always change the topic. So, Alec, you want to just talk a little bit about that?
Yes. So, I will say that there has been, as more and more people move to the newest version of Facebook, which I am not on yet. I'm at a bit of a disadvantage because I am getting questions from time to time about what's happened to the topics page, where's it going. But if you have a topic that you want to add, please let me know, and we will add that topic to the list. If you're having trouble setting up topics, I'm doing the research to see how you do it in the latest version that some of you have of Facebook. And if you try really hard and you've not been able to get it done, if you're very nice, I will add it for you if you tell me specifically what you'd like it to be. But I just ask that you please just try to do it.
But only if you're nice.
And
yeah,
but only if you're nice.
You're a good man, Charlie Brown. Okay, Bonnie Davison, look at this beautiful shot.
Oh my God!
The graphic element, This is probably a little bit of post-processing. I don't know, but we have that beautiful detail, in this part of the bridge. This looks, this I guess is a new style, like the Mario Cuomo Bridge, which Susan and I are always going to call the Tappan Zee Bridge. Right? You too, Alec?
Yeah. Absolutely.
But look at so many things, came together, I think, to make this a nice image. So good for you, Bonnie. But we have, this graphic element. We have a great exposure. We have the nice color down here. We have what looks like a long shutter speed to blur the water. We have, whoops, I just moved this. We have this this line like the base of the bridge here going, like through the frame here. It's just, whoops. I just love it.
Yeah, no, I like it too. I like the color. I think that sky is kind of interesting in that we have this beautiful opening in the bottom of the of the sky, and then this sort of really cloudy top of this guy, which, a lot of us would look at it and would be like, hey, that guy is not so great. But in this situation, it really makes the supports on that bridge stand out, right? So makes it really detailed look at how this bridge is constructed, which is absolutely beautiful. There's a bridge similar to this in Boston as well. There's one in Jacksonville as well. There's a number of them around the country. This is a kind of a new style of bridge that is not just good looking, but it's economical and very safe. So really well done, Bonnie. And again, the perspective is great. The fact that you shot a little low, gives us nice curve to that bridge. If you had shot kind of at street level, you may have gotten the lights of the car, right? But you would not have gotten that sweeping angle of the road.
We're like paying attention to detail, like here, right? And I think there was one other one where we found something really small. But anyway, getting back to this, I like the fact that a small aperture, that Bonnie used a small aperture, so we have these starburst effects, right?
Right.
So it was either 16 or 22 or whatever. But I think that other words, if you shot something like this at a wide aperture, you'd have like a blob of light, right? So
right. And some lenses will give you that. Not all lenses will give you the starburst effect when you shoot, when you're stopped down, but usually when it be at f16, f18, something like that, and try it with a lens. I have some lenses that will do it, and some lenses that won't do it so much. People say, well, it's the number of aperture blades, and it's not just the number of aperture blades. It has to do with the optics of the lens as well.
Very, very good. Hey, Alec, look at this. It was under travel. So we picked one that wasn't on topic. Okay, Tricia Lombardi. Susan and I have been here in Myanmar. These temples are just amazing. But again, it's these rays of light. I just mentioned before, we were talking about that the sun does not have to be in the frame. So the sun's actually out of the frame here, which I really like. A lot of people, they get in position. Susan and I have been at the top of this temple, and you can see my shot over on the right here. But I love the way that she moved in a little closer. We have these layers, and layers add a sense of depth and dimension to a photograph. We see the world in 2D. We see the world in 3D. A camera sees in 2D. So using these layers really adds a sense of depth and dimension, and the color is just so beautiful. So good job.
What is it about this location that gets so much fog, right? Because it does. Every time you see pictures of these temples in Myanmar, there's all this low-lying fog, and it must be because of the the humidity of the jungle and that tropical area. But they just, the fog just makes those images. I don't think the images would be anywhere near as mysterious and as cool if they weren't covered in fog like they are.
Like the fog here is nice, right?
Yes, right.
Yes. So good job, Tricia. Okay, Chip. Actually, his picture is on the cover of our Facebook group page, and each week we change that. So keep posting good pictures, great pictures, our friends, and we might select one of your pictures. We haven't picked the topic for next week yet, have we?
No, we haven't.
Okay, we'll discuss this. We'll post it. And anyway, I love this for a lot of reasons. It's the mood. It's the feeling. Sun's not in the center. The horizon line's not in the center. Everything in this scene is in focus. We have nice clouds here. And I love the way these rocks, it looks like you're almost like on the moon.
Yeah, I love those rocks, that they get pocked. I think this is karst material that does get pockmarked like that with the erosion, and it does add a lot of interest to our foreground. It makes the foreground that much more interesting. And I love the framing. The one suggestion that I would have, Chip, is pay attention to that water and try to capture the wave crashing onto the shore or onto the rocks to add a little bit more interest and a sense of dynamics to the image itself, and it just makes that little bit of a difference to bring in a little bit more interest onto the scene. So think about that, adding a little bit more or shooting, paying attention to the water and shooting when those waves are crashing. Even if it's a longer exposure, you'll be surprised as to how cool those little waves look like when you have a slow exposure.
That's a good tip. That's a very good tip. I just noticed this over here. I don't know what that is. I might take it out. I can't zoom in, but it looks like either a plastic bag or something. I'm not sure. But this is the advantage of looking at pictures, being the critiquers, right? We have the time to do this. Okay. I think this is the first one. Let me see if I'm correct. The first one with people in the picture. And we like this, like the mood and the feeling. You've got the sunburst that we were talking about before. And when Juan saw this, he said, is this how the picture is cropped, or did you take a quick screenshot? And this is how the picture was posted. So Jim Hagan, we like this picture. We like the mood. We like the feeling. But Juan, what did you say?
Well, we need to see more of the people down below. I mean, if you're going to crop, you want to, you got to pay attention to those edges, right? And you have enough room here at the top. You don't need all that greenery, all that blue sky at the top. You just need a little bit of it above the trees. But being able to see the people, I think it's important, especially since they play such a prominent role in this scene. But, I love the starburst. I love the location. I love the mood of the shot, but I definitely want to see more of those people at the bottom.
It's interesting, and Jim did a good job of cleaning his lens, as you know, Juan, right? If you have a speck of dust, right, when you're shooting into the sun, especially with a wide-angle lens, if you had just a speck, it could be like a big blob. And I haven't. Let me see. I don't think we have. We don't have any of those.
Well, especially especially on an image like that where he had to shoot a small aperture, right? But to get that sunburst, that's when those specks of dust are going to become more evident. And you can clean him up, and you can clean him up in Lightroom or Photoshop afterwards. But that's a lot of work, and you have to be careful, especially when you have such beautifully smooth gradients here in the sky. So pay attention to that, because it's better to have a clean lens and a clean sensor than having to edit it in Photoshop afterwards.
Yep. And we also talked about, actually, before we came on, we were talking about basic tips is when you're shooting into the sun, remove all filters, because if you have a filter on, what's going to happen, what could happen is the sun's going to come through sunlight, especially in a situation like this, is going to come through the filter, bounce off the front element of the lens back onto the filter, and you might get a ghost image of the sun in your frame, which is hard to take out because it's so subtle, from, a bright area to I think we might have had, let me see, we have a ghost image here. No. But anyway, this is really important to do. Remember to take off all filters.
Yeah, and Rick, this is the reason why I don't shoot with filters typically.
Same here.
Or as seldomly as possible. It's because they can. It's not just that the quality of the filter needs to be top notch, which all my filters are typically high end filters, but the fact that you may get that stray bit of light or that reflection of that light that could ruin the shot. So.
I have an example of that that I'll share. What happens when you do not do that. But anyway, this is a great shot. It's a mood. It's a feeling. It's the kind of shot you might see on Instagram, with people small in the frame. But I think we would like to see a little more of the people. Speaking of liking to see a little more, in this shot by Jim. In this shot by Jim, I think we'd like to see a little more of this. This plant. What do you think, Juan? Yeah,
I think so too. I think that that border patrol, as we like to say, you move your eye around that edge of the frame before you trip that shutter, is very important to make sure that you're not cutting off anything you don't mean to cut off, and that you not including anything you don't mean to include in the shot. And here, there are a couple of things that we do a little quick border patrol. That red vegetation on the bottom left. That is a little bit too close to the left edge there, and I'd also like to see a little bit more on the bottom of that plant, a little bit more of it, especially because you have it in conjunction with those white flowers as well. Perhaps what you wanted to do is actually get down lower here to change the perspective.
Right.
If you had gotten lower, one of the things that would have happened is those red flowers or red plant, as well as the white flowers, would move up in the frame, and they would get closer to the edge of that water, to that shoreline, taking up some of that green space that is not necessarily adding a lot to the scene, and would make those two elements a lot more prominent in your image. So, I have a friend that he's about 6 feet tall, and he likes to say the world is not 6 feet tall. And that's one way of his way of saying is that you need to move up and down. Don't always shoot from a standing position. You definitely want to move up and down, left and right. To use one of your Sammonisms, use your camera like a spaceship, moving around to try to find, the best perspective on your subjects. We cannot move these plants, right? This is a natural scene. Right. But we can change our perspective to those plants and to the background by moving our camera to, lower or higher or whatnot. And the same thing here on the right. We have that right there by the shoreline. We have a plant that's coming up that's right against the edge, which I would have tried to avoid as well, either by giving it more room or trying to crop it out altogether. So experiment a little bit with moving your camera around and seeing what that landscape looks like by just, moving up and down. Sometimes it's a few inches. Sometimes you may need to get down on your belly or maybe just sit down on the ground.
I've updated that Sammonism.
Oh, you have?
Yeah, use your camera like a drone.
Oh, yeah, there you go. That's a little bit, a lot more relatable.
Yeah. But anyway, I think those are all good tips that our members can relate to. I like the S curve here. And what I really like about this is my guess is this is HDR, because Jim has that, that tight, that nice ball of clear edge around the sun there. Yet we could see deep into the shadows, but it doesn't look like an HDR image. So, or unless he, did a lot of processing, opening up the shadows and toning down the highlights, which, as you know, Juan and Alec, and as a lot of our members know, every time a new version of Lightroom and Photoshop comes out, the more we can tone down the highlights and open up the shadows. But I like the way that this doesn't look like it was really, processed to hell, so to speak. Look at this picture. Gene Duffy. I love this shot.
Yeah, and this is one of those cases, right, where, the oversaturation kind of works for me.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because you're making the image almost into a graphic image versus, a realistic image. And it's almost like not a black and white, but a dual tone or tritone type image.
Right,
you have your reds, you have your oranges, you have your purples, and your blacks. Really nice.
And you know what? There's an expression, a photo expression. Sometimes the subject's not the subject, meaning people would go there to photograph the lighthouse and they shoot really tight, And here the subject, I think, is this whole beautiful area with I love you talked about the waves before, Juan. The way the waves are coming up like this little crest of the waves and the reflection, and the way we have a little dark space here and the waves are coming in, the reflection. The frame here I think really goes. If I could jump ahead, let me go ahead. If I could jump ahead, what number is that? 19. Alec, any comments before we go on?
I will say that Gerardo has joined, and he'll have to watch the video from the replay. And Chip did comment a while back that in fact, Juan, it was a still morning and no movement in the water.
Oh yeah. There's a comment here that I like from Carolyn. Carolyn posted in YouTube. She said, "I have a friend who won't crop her photos. I don't understand that. As far as I'm concerned, cropping is another tool that we can use to create an even better picture." And I know you, Rick, and we both agree wholeheartedly with that, because cropping is part of the compositional process, right?
Yeah.
And I understand people may not want to crop out of aspect ratios, and they want to honor aspect ratios, but to me, aspect ratios are made up things, just
Same
because... the camera took an image in a certain aspect ratio doesn't mean you have to maintain the aspect ratio, or that you need to do it by 16:9 or whatever. Just do whatever works for you. But if you like to stick to aspect ratios, go right ahead. But I think you're missing out a lot by not cropping images. I think that's a huge part of the compositional process.
Like this picture, right? This is cropped like in the HD format, right?
Right.
HD TV format or something
Right.
like that. So I like it. But anyway, getting back to the frames are really important. And I like the way, I don't know if this frame was created by, in Photoshop using the color picker and picking one of the colors here and making the frame. But I think the frame works in this beautiful picture. Here, Diane E. Beck, we like this picture a lot, but the frame, I think, kind of like overpowers this beautiful picture of the trees and the fog and the sun. This looks like it could be the cover of a calendar.
Yeah, I agree. I think that the blue is on that frame is so thick that my eye kind of keeps drifting off to the edges. Do you feel that? Do you feel like your eyes are moving off to the edges a little bit?
Yeah, it's a little too heavy.
Yeah, it's a little too heavy. I would just make it white, if anything. If you want that matte background, just keep it white. That's going to be pretty neutral. But besides the framing, I like the image. Again, another starburst, which, is always a favorite. I think that the layering here is beautiful. The way that we got the trees, we got the clouds, we got the mountains, we got the sky. And the way that these are distributed, almost following exactly the rule of thirds. That's why the image feels so peaceful and so inviting.
So good job, Diane. And play around with different frames. Okay, we're coming down the home stretch here. Look at the negative space in this picture, right? Scott Kelby says if you're driving around and you see a tree, jump out of the car and take a picture of it. Well, Nathan Goldberg saw the tree, saw the light. I just love this, and it's so clean up here, right? It's so clean. He has a good exposure. Juan and I always say expose for the highlights, which is what we're talking about when we're talking about photographing around the sun. I just love the exposure here.
Yeah, I do too, and I like the composition. Again, this is one of those images that you would want to print big and put it in your living room. Very peaceful, but yet there's so much to see and so much to look at in this frame. Really nicely done. Again, our my tendency, at least, and I know a lot of people's tendency, is to like zoom in and getting close. And oftentimes that's what we want to do because, you and I have said this many, many times, is that, if you think you're close, get closer, right? That's one of your Sammonisms, right? We oftentimes don't get close enough, but sometimes we get too close. So pulling back a little bit, giving us a little bit more context is going to oftentimes create a great image.
Like this picture, right?
Yes, exactly. Same thing here. It's kind of cool that we have so many people that are following, that are taking that advice and kind of shooting a more expansive, inclusive landscape.
Well, we're coming down the home stretch now. We usually don't, actually for the past 3 or 4 happy hours, we haven't showed any of the moderators' pictures, but we're showing Jim Griggs's picture here, Sunset. I really love the way, that the sun, the reflection of the sun is just going through these waves. So he made a picture. He just didn't take a picture. Jim is he here with us, Alec?
He is. Jim is with us and drinking Whiskey Barrel Bulldog.
Wow. Well, if this is the key, Jim, if this is the key to getting a shot like this, I think this is good advice. But I love, again, exposing for the highlights. And the way this sun ray, the reflection leads us to the sun, and the way that this piece of land comes out. But before Juan comments on this, I just want to say that this coming Saturday at 11 o'clock a.m. Eastern, Jim's going to be a special guest. Alec and I are going to host this, and Jim's going to share some of his favorite wildlife and landscape pictures. So if you're enjoying these happy hour sessions, please tune in this Saturday at 11 Eastern. So Juan, what do you think?
So, again, we talked so much about paying attention to what's happening with the water, right? To add a bit of interest to the scene. And that's exactly what Jim did here. He went ahead and paid attention to that water so he can capture something that complements the image. I can't help but notice that this was shot on an EOS 1N, which is an old camera, on a Kodak E100 VS slide film.
I know.
This is an oldie but a goodie. I still have lots of stuff that I shot when I was shooting Velvia and Provia back in the day. But, I don't dare show them, so to speak, because they just don't compare what we're getting nowadays, right?
Well, it's true. And actually, I think this is the only film shot in here. Art Wolf, we were talking to him recently about some of his film shots. And he said he can't believe how soft they got over the years.
Right.
meaning like with digital, we could sharpen, we could zoom in.
Right.
But when we shot film, we had to use, and I'm sure some of our younger members never heard of this technique, the BLH rule. Juan, you know what the BLH rule is?
BLH. No, I don't know the BLH rule.
When you shot slide film, you had to use especially in a very high contrast situation like this, you had to use the BLH rule. And the BLH rule, and you don't have to use it when
burn like hell.
Bracket like hell.
Oh, bracket like hell, yeah.
Bracket like hell, because if you're
That's right.
more than a third of a stop, right?
Oh
you're
yeah.
Screwed.
I mean, for landscapes, you always had your camera set on bracket all the time. You never removed it from bracket, and you shot 6 shots or whatever, and and all 6 went in the trash afterwards.
Oh, Susan and I would underwater. When we were doing underwater, I'd get like any underwater photographer. If Marty Snyderman is listening, well, he's really a great underwater photographer. He probably got a higher percentage of good pictures. But if I got one good shot per roll, because you're moving, the fish are moving, your strobes are moving, the fish are reflective. Some are, some aren't. So if you got one good roll, so after a trip, like Susan and I would go to the Red Sea, I'd shoot 70 rolls of film. I'd go out with these giant plastic bags of outtakes because they couldn't be saved.
Right.
So anyway, we want to thank everyone so much for joining us for another photo happy hour. Juan, thanks so much for setting this up again. I know it's not easy. Alec, you done with the coffee? You gonna have like a little celebration after this?
I'm done with the coffee. I might open up a dead guy.
Open up a dead guy. Okay.
Oh, good.
Or take
and Rick, we should also say, you may want to say hello. Alex Morley is on and joined late, so I know that we covered his image very early on.
Yeah, he led off. Alex is amazing. He's a good friend. He goes back to the same place over and over and over again. He's a perfectionist. In my last book, Photo Quest, I have a chapter on superpowers. And Juan contributed, and you contributed to the book, and thank you guys. And Alex said his superpower is being a perfectionist, almost to a fault. And in everything he does, he's a perfectionist. And we're really glad that he's our friend and that he's here. And we're really glad that all the people who joined us today are here. So thank you, everyone, so much.
Thank you, folks. And don't forget, we'll be back next Thursday at 5 p.m. for another happy hour. And if you want to find out, I saw a question coming through about the topic for next week. We will make that determination probably just as soon as we hang up here. And then there'll be an announcement on the phototherapy group. So make sure you check out the phototherapy Facebook group. There'll be an announcement there what the topic will be next week so that you can submit images, hoping that they'll get selected for us to tear them down or to give you constructive criticism.
And just finally, just one more thing. Juan mentioned our workshop in Cuba. This bar behind me is actually a bar in Cuba. So if we go there, we'll have happy hour there live.
Yeah, look at that. Look at that bar. Isn't that something else?
Oh, yeah.
And they have that picture of Susan and Rick there permanently. And mine's up there, too, all the time.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, definitely. Okay, everybody. Take care.
Okay. Take care, folks. Until next time. Take care.